Assalamu alaikum. How are you doing, guys? I hope you're doing well. Today's podcast, I will be talking about allies and enemies. I know some of you have been like, how long is he going to talk about strategy and art and warfare and all of that? Of course, I was certainly going to come to it. So let's start this podcast properly then, shall we? And I am very cognizant of the fact that in one of our previous podcasts, I did not give our usual greetings. Please pardon me. Man Zakin. Buenos dias, buen dia, guten tag. It's night now, so good night. Machimaha, Jambo, Habari, and all the languages that I'm forgetting. Wezo, you're welcome. So, allies and enemies. I think one of my favorite books after Rules for a Knight will be The Art of War by Sun Tzu. One of the things that he said in The Art of War was, if you know yourself alone, then in 100 wars, you might be assured of some victories. But if you know your enemy, then in 100 wars, you might be assured of most victories. But if you know yourself and know your enemy, then 100 wars, 100 victories. We live in a world and time where people would like to believe that everybody around you is your friend and everybody cares about you. In as much as that is what I would love to share with the rest of you, you simply have lived long enough to know that that is not the truth. In as much as some people deeply care about you, some people deeply resent you as well. It is an imperative to know how to function and how to operate in a world where you're surrounded by allies and enemies. So the first thing I've learned to do personally is to remember that at the end of the day, whether allies or enemies, the only person who I can really trust, apart from God, of course, as a believer, is myself. Honestly speaking, who else can you trust better than yourself? If you cannot trust your own self, then I think there's quite a problem with your persona. It is for this very reason that I tell people that discipline is not an option. When you tell yourself, I'll get out of bed at 7 a.m., you get out of bed at 7 a.m. Because sooner or later, you begin to develop trust issues against your own self, such that when you say, I would get out of bed at 7 a.m., a part of your brain says, that's a lie. Has it happened to you before? The first important rule is to be able to trust yourself. Trust your instincts, trust your judgments. The second thing is to be able to distinguish between friends and foes, or friends and enemies. How do you do this? I have experienced a lot of blah blah blahs in my life. A lot of people who say they care about you, and they don't. I've also experienced people who seem to not care about you, but they do actually. I'm reminded of my childhood of Sister Ikea. Sister Ikea was very stern on me and very strict. In my early ages, I actually thought she hated me. And the same for my elder brother, Richard. I thought this guy has a personal vendetta against me. Why is he always beating me? Why is he always lashing me? Like, what at all does he want from me? Because in my opinion, the people who love you should not hurt you. That is far from the truth. I've come to realize that these two people are people who most definitely loved me and most definitely love me till now. Oh, I'm sure of that. Time has proven it. There are also a group of people who love you, who are kind to you. Of course, my adopted mother, Miss Veronica Dankwa, she would be very kind. She would correct you in a very sweet way. And the same for other people I met in my life. Correct me in very sweet ways. Show me love, soft love as I call it, very soft love. And then there are people who actually show you soft love, but don't really love you. They are there with a sweet tongue. They are there to lure you into trusting them, only for you to open up entirely to them so they can hit. Well, it happens a lot of times. It will happen a lot of times in life. You cannot live a life of paranoia because of that. You've got to open up. You've got to love people. You've got to know who you can trust. You distinguish these people from their actions. So, people who love you genuinely will do what's good for you, even when it's not evident. They do what is good for you, even when it does not appear to be so in the moment. The people who hate you, your enemies, they are people who say they are doing things for your good, but do not think of the long term. I'll give you a quick example. I've had people say, "Oh, Prince, I'm punishing you because I love you," but the punishment was actually creating a negative cycle in my life. Yeah. And there are people who I actually thought were hurting me, but their punishment actually created a positive cycle in my life. You see, they were all punishing me, but the end result was fundamentally different. I like to say it this way. When you're going to use a highway, or when you're using a highway, when you start on a highway, you might all start using the same road, but as you move on, you start to diverge. And the point of divergence starts off with a very small angle, such that you can almost literally jump from one side of the road to the other side. But if you continue long enough, it might take you to two different countries. That is how friends and enemies are. In the beginning, they are almost indistinguishable. But if you give it some time, observe the actions carefully, critically, you will see that although the actions are similar, the underlying intent are different. Another thing that is very important when it comes to friends and enemies is to know that both friends and enemies are extremely important. Let me tell you, nobody gives you better critical feedback than an enemy. A true enemy. And nobody also gives you the best critical feedback like a friend. You might wonder, Prince, but how? Aren't these people doing the same things? Yes, they are. I have a friend and a brother, a cousin, whatever. Most people, at this point, he's my legal custodian in Morocco, savior. And when I am doing anything, I would filter it through people, but I would filter it through savior as well. And guys, bear in mind, I mean, there was a previous video I did that he criticized, he blasted me, guys. I'm not going to share that with you, so you guys go laugh at me as well. But he criticized me very sternly. But he doesn't leave me there. He tells me, and this is what you should do to improve. I also remember that I would actually sing, and then there are people who would tell me, "Ah, Prince, your voice it's not that bad, it's not that good, it's okay." And you know, they're trying to be lukewarm with me, but in actual sense, we're trying to discourage me from singing. Guys, just by the way, if you think you cannot sing, please send me a message. I've come to realize that everybody has a voice. Some people might just not like your voice, but I've seen different varieties of musicians to agree on the fact that the worst voices have an audience. Back on track. Friends and enemies then are extremely important in this game of life as we have it. You cannot be surrounded by all friends. Neither can you be surrounded by all foes or enemies. It's detrimental to your progress in life. You need one and the other to be able to make it in life. Remember, life is not a smooth sail. Life is made up of waves. It comes and goes in waves. Sometimes you're up, being hailed by your friends, and sometimes you're down, being pulled down by your enemies. And sometimes it's even your enemies that pull you up, and sometimes it's even your friends that pull you down. Final note. Friends and enemies are not eternal. Yes. The worst of enemies can become the best of friends. And the best of friends can become the worst of enemies. In my few years in this life, I have seen some things that scare me. And scare me positively. They make me cautious. They make me humble. I've come to realize that it is very important to not put people in boxes. They might be your friends for today, but tomorrow they might be your enemies. And they might be your enemies today, and tomorrow they might be the best friends you ever had. So keep an open mind. Stay loving. Stay cautious, you know. Always be on the move. Don't take unnecessary shots. And as a wise man once told me, pick your battles wisely. But I will also tell you, pick your paradises wisely as well. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Till I come your way next time, the name is Prince Tego. Take care. Cheers.